Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Escape Big Data Analytics Conference, where today we'll be learning by doing. My name is Louis Galitas, and I'm the Chief Information and Marketing Officer for National Rental Services, the Chicago-based property management firm. I will be hosting for the day, and I would like to start off by inviting everyone, including those that are watching this broadcast live online, and those at our satellite locations, to join in on the conversation by asking any questions you might have for our speakers on our Twitter handle at Escape Tech, as we can see there. And we'll do our best to incorporate that any questions you might have into our Q&A after each speaker. Also, please note that our conference agenda, room assignments, and timeline can be found at our website at www.the-escape.org. In addition, immediately following our closing remarks today, we will have an open reception and networking event with drinks and hors d'oeuvres down at the art gallery on the first floor. Now, I would like to take a moment to introduce the newly appointed President and Chief Operating Officer of Robert Morris University, Maybelline Kruger. Mrs. Kruger is a graduate of Robert Morris University and holds an MBA from the University of Illinois at Springfield. Maybelline was a faculty member at 2 branch campuses for 15 years before becoming the campus director of the Springfield branch. She then moved on to the Senior Vice President of Advancement and then the Senior Vice President for Academics before becoming the first provost of the university. In January 2015, the RMU Executive Board named Maybelline Kruger the university's 9th President and Chief Operating Officer. She will become the second woman to hold the office, and more importantly, one of the first individuals in the state of Illinois to become president of her alma mater. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Maybelline Kruger.
Thank you very much, and it's my pleasure to offer a brief welcome today. It's always just wonderful to have people on our campus, in our building, and experience what our Robert Morris students experience every day. A big thank you to all of our sponsors, but in particular President Mike Biles of Robert Morris University. Without the support of his office in terms of time and dollars, this really couldn't take place. We love hosting this conference. It's the second year, and I'm happy to share also it's the second year that it has literally booked up within days of opening. So it's wonderful. You know, at Robert Morris, our mission is to offer professional, career-focused degrees in a collegiate environment to a diverse group of students. And we do that by integrating experience-based teaching and learning throughout the curricular areas that we offer. And the Escape Conference is really a wonderful example of that. Not only will you be learning from professionals in sessions, but you'll also have an opportunity to network with one another and with other professionals as well. And I would like to offer a special welcome to the students here today who are representing 11 colleges and universities. So enjoy your day. I was going to start by saying welcome to the NFL draft, but that's so right? So welcome to the NFL draft after party. Have a great day.
And now for our keynote speaker, Dr. Phil Shelley. As former CTO of Sears Holdings, Dr. Shelley has several years of experience in helping move a large iconic brand into a near real-time model where digital engagement with customers has become the norm. He has led IT operations for one of the largest retailers in the world, including data centers, data warehousing, data integration, enterprise architecture, and system engineering. Dr. Shelley led his organization through major changes in retail, such as real-time omni-channel systems, design, implementation, and operation. He continues to be a leader in the industry today as the president of Newton Park Partners. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Phil Shelley.
Thank you, Louis, and everyone here and online. There's another room next door. You can hear me okay, right? Good, if you can't. I like things to be interactive, which is going to be an interesting challenge because there's only you in the room and everyone else is going to have to do Twitter questions, which is fine. So, but I would love questions, and you can stop me. Anybody in the room, or Louis maybe if you see Twitter questions immediately, I'd like to make it interactive because this is meant to be a learning experience. I've been You've got a question already? Oh,
For the Twisker, what was the hashtag again?
no. Oh,
That is at Escape Tech.
at Escape Tech. So, yes, so you're going to tweet in here, not in the room, you can just ask a question. You can tweet too. So, now I've been lucky enough to have roles which I hope will be beneficial. Some of the learnings will be beneficial to you. I've been a CIO and a CTO for about 15 years. I've been an SVP-led business divisions as well. So I've had both sides of IT and the business for quite a few years, more years than I probably want to count. Since I and some of my colleagues, one of whom's here, we left Sears, we started Metascale. The Metascale guys are here. I was the founder and CEO of Metascale too, which is a big data services company. When we left Sears and Metascale, we formed a company called Datamatica. So now we focus on helping large companies implement Hadoop specifically and run Hadoop and move workload to Hadoop across all industries, and it's typically the large companies in Europe, Asia, and in the US. It's an interesting area. I'm going to spend a bit of time at the end on skills and skill needs, because I know a lot of you are students, and there are significant skill gaps in the industry today that hopefully some of you can fill, especially in the US. In India, it's a bit easy to find people. In Europe, it's nearly impossible to find people with these skills, and in the US, it's not easy. And so you will be able to command some pretty good salaries in some cases. So you should listen if you're students. Where are we? Okay, so we're going to talk a little about this. So the changing area of data management, especially in analytics, not just analytics, but the analytics area is very hot at the moment. A lot of growth in that area. I'm going to explain, I hope, why. And hopefully some of you can benefit from that. So what we used to do, actually, and still do, is these things. So about 95% of workload, I'm guessing, right, 95% of workload in most companies, probably almost 100% in many companies, is still done in a very traditional way in the analytics space. I'd love to see it change more quickly because there's a lot of advantages we're going to talk about soon. But in reality, companies, especially large companies, are super slow at change, and there's a lot of inertia. So if any of you work in big companies, you'll see this. If you're students, you haven't seen it yet, but you will when you go and work for big companies. My prediction is that the current legacy methods of dealing with data are still going to exist 10 years from now in many large companies, even though they should be changing, but they won't, for many reasons. If you want to ask questions about that, I can give you a whole list of reasons they don't change quickly. But what we do, right, we copy data many times. Any large company has tens or dozens or sometimes hundreds of copies of the same data in different places. It's just everywhere. We break up data into analytics-ready tables, and the reason is that needed to be broken up is it's historically performance and cost. So you wouldn't have one copy of data on a transactional system and do analytics on it. You would make copies of it. The problem is you'd make copies of it and you'd split it up. And so let's take an example like sales from a company. A sales file may come from different divisions. It may get amalgamated to look across all divisions or all countries. But then that sales file, and you're going to get into some of the technical details today with some of the workshops, may have had, I don't know, 100 columns of data. But the legacy systems were expensive, or still are expensive, so you don't want to put all 100 columns in every department's data mart because of the cost. So people say, I want those 30 columns, and somebody else wants these 20 columns. So you end up with maybe 10 or 20 different sets of data, all with our subsets of the original data, and we end up with this extensive ETL. Everybody knows what ETL is, I hope. Extract, transform, and load. Extensive ETL to coordinate all of this. But we divided the workload then across multiple platforms. So lots of data warehouses, lots of databases. Everybody has their own, database under the table. And some people do have databases under the table and their own server and their own copies of data. They have their own Excel spreadsheets. We have data everywhere, but it's moved to lower cost platforms. But then you have to archive the data frequently because the systems aren't big enough or they're too expensive, and IT won't give you the 100 terabytes you want. They'll only give you 50, so you have to archive all the time. And then all these, and then people make, Joe has this great sales data mart. Everybody used Joe's sales data mart. Problem is he didn't put returns or refunds in it, so it's not the real sales file. So people reuse people's marts, but they're not really the true marts in many cases. And then audit and lineage is really hard in that scenario. And access control is really hard in that scenario because there's people who have copies everywhere. Well, question, great.
I'm sorry, can you explain lineage?
Lineage? Yeah, so where did the data come from?
Oh, okay.
Who touched it? What changed? When did it change? Where did it go? That's pretty difficult today in most companies. Very few companies can really track. Even the regulated companies, even banks, may say to the SEC they have good control, but they don't often have good control of data lineage. It's very difficult. Any more questions? Thank you, George. You're the first one. No? Okay. So what's changing? Proliferation of tools. In the last few years, there's a number of tools that are coming out are huge. It's because of the open source movement now is so well embraced. And you can thank, in the big data space, you can certainly thank Google for that, and then Facebook and Yahoo and many others have really given us some, Twitter. I know we're using Twitter today. Twitter producing Storm and other tools. We've been really, really fortunate to have this massive innovation from the open source community. Scale now to almost unlimited size. We're just talking about it. My wife just came back from the UK yesterday. The plane took off. 4 minutes after it took off, it landed again. They didn't say why. Went to the gate. Police came on with guns, took a guy off in handcuffs. Apparently he was a terrorist. They thought he was a terrorist. But Homeland Security in the US is apparently one of the largest, nobody tells you really, one of the largest Hadoop environments in the world. I was talking to somebody from SGI Computers a couple of years ago. They were selling 1,400 racks per quarter, 80 servers per rack to Homeland Security. So, there's a lot of data out there on us when we go through airports, our pictures, our videos, all our faces are being matched, our backgrounds. Luckily, it's working most of the time. So scale to ridiculous and performance to ridiculous, almost unimaginable level. Costs are massively less because of this open source movement. We're talking of costs now that are often more than 50% reduced compared to legacy systems. And we can store any type of data. We can store the example I just gave you: video, pictures, text, medical images, medical records, along with relational structures, which of course was difficult before. And latency. Now we can do real-time analytics. We've done quite a few of them where we're doing an analytics algorithm and delivering an answer in less than 200 milliseconds for online services. Mobility. Nobody wants to click a button, an icon on your phone. No, this is not a phone, right? But click an icon on your phone and wait for a batch job to run to get the answer, right? You don't want to. Nobody wants a batch job running on their phone. ETL is really changing. This ETL copying, I'm going to show you that, is really changing. And we're starting to reduce this fragmentation of data. Questions? 19 minutes. So why is it changing? Data's growing. Even legacy companies, large companies, are seeing 40% growth in data. 40% a year, you can assume, you're all students, right? Not all students, but you can do the math. That's a lot of data fairly quickly. We all want to be treated in a personalized way. We used to be segmented in a market segment where we'd be part of 500,000 people in a segment of the market. But now we want to be treated as an individual. Your online campaigns are individualized. Your pricing may be individualized. Many things are being personalized for you. Mobility is requiring this low latency engagement on analytics. Cost pressures on IT, really strong cost pressures in IT. Always have been, but they're really big at the moment. And advanced marketing techniques. People want to interact from a marketing point of view in every way. Geolocation, I drive past Walgreens, I get a pop-up on Google Pay to say, to Google Pay, Google Wallet. I'm mixing up Apple Pay and Google Wallet. Sorry, Google. Anyway, they pop up that I have, these bonus reward points, and do you want to spend them because you just went past the Walgreens. That's real-time marketing that's pretty hard to do in the old days. Digital engagement, need for fraud detection, fraud, believe it or not, is getting faster because the tools are getting faster, so you have to respond faster. Looking for marketing opportunities, geolocation, I just mentioned, social channels, which we're using today quite a bit. We're using Hangouts to do this broadcast and recording, and Twitter to do the questions, which is driving a lot of data. I don't know how many gigs you're going to store today for this. There's quite a few, I'm sure, onto Google. And analytics, this is where analytics is going. We have been, and still many companies are now at this end, doing predefined reports. What were our sales last month? What was our plan, and how did we do against that plan? A lot of ad hoc stuff. We need to start moving, and some people are, up into this real-time dashboards. What are my KPIs as my job? I have my 10 KPIs for my job. Am I doing a good job or not? Are they all green? Are they not green? If they're not green, tell me they're not green and why. I shouldn't have to go and find out if I'm doing a good job. The data should tell me in real time. And now we're doing that more and more. So this is a trend that you want to plug yourself into if you're a student, because it's starting to happen. Question, yes?
Why do you have descriptive analytics for the private predictor?
I don't know. I can't remember. I think the reason, I'll look at the text more, is what is going to happen and what's happening. These kind of jumbled together, but we want to say what is going to happen based on models that are predictive, and what is happening and what will happen, because the latency, we're talking now of minutes in some cases or seconds. You can reverse the two. It's just that's where we're trying to go to in this middle at the moment is mashing these two together. Rather than going for the, I don't know many people are really getting very advanced on some of the right-hand end. The idea is to reduce latency and try to use algorithms that predict, like inventory stockouts, service problems. Don't alert me when I actually have a problem. Alert me when in time to react that I will have a problem. So what is the enterprise? An enterprise data hub or data lake. Some people call it a data lake. I kind of prefer a hub model, but I'll show you why in a minute. It's really a different mindset around data management. Getting to a single point of truth. All this fragmented data sets, collapsing it to a single point of truth wherever possible. Sourcing data once from its real source and then reusing it is really important. Getting away from this ETL copying. These are very profound changes in the way you manage data, and they're not trivial, but they are definitely happening. Integrated infrastructure, we're talking these big clusters now are where all data and all compute can be concentrated and a lot of power available. New software tools we talked about. We need a data model that is enterprise ready, and that's a whole topic. We can go into whole workshops on that. Some of you will actually today, probably. How we layer data in these enterprise hubs, so we can control security, we can control transformation of data, and control access to data in an environment that's manageable and stable from an operations point of view. And governance is hugely important. If anybody here is interested in governance, in the old days it was almost impossible to govern these fragmented data sets because of that lineage problem. Now it has to be well governed because you're going to try and encourage your organization to look at single point of truth. If it's not really true, they're going to get pretty disillusioned quickly. So single point of truth is so important, and governance is so important. And then we can get this audit and lineage thing under control to some degree. And the auditors and regulators around the world are really pushing for that, and it's been pretty difficult historically. So what does it mean? Now we can keep full fidelity, full history, full detail of transaction data. It's cheap enough, we have enough processing power, and we can put it all in one place. That was never possible before in conventional data warehouses because of cost and performance issues. Now if we want 10 years of history of sales or inventory or product or customer transactions, we can have it. And we can do long-term trending and more data to get better results. We have significant scalability at much lower cost, very low latency down to seconds if we need it. In-memory is now becoming a commodity. It was a specialty the last 5 to 7 years it's been used more and more, but it was a specialty separate entity. Now it's being integrated with Spark on top of Hadoop. Single point of truth, data reuse are really growing. This is really happening audit. And then we're blending of all data types. Now we are blending text with relational data, sometimes image data, and being able to do analytics, combining the two, lowering costs and driving up self-service for the business. So how do you take advantage of that? First, you have to embrace this data hub model concept, which is a different way of thinking of data, which I'll try and give you a little bit more on before I finish. And then find use cases that demonstrate value in your company. I've just listed a few examples here. Easy ones to start with. If you're in a company and you want to just start to move this along, I suggest picking one of these because they have high probability of success and high value or reasonable value to the company. I'm not going to go through them unless you have questions, but I will if you want me to explain them. At least do something. Do a proof of concept on your own data in your own environment. It's so important. Just get something moving. Using cloud services now, you can spin up Hadoop on Amazon or Azure or IBM. I mean, IBM too. Any of those will help you with getting a cloud instance running at very low cost to try one of these use cases. A lot of new skills. I'm going to have a whole slide on skills because a lot of you are students, and start to show some results. So I mentioned cloud again too, because cloud is a real enabler in this space. Google too now, actually. So multiple cloud vendors will allow very low-cost big data environments for you to stand up for development or testing. And it's a really big area we use it a lot to help get things going quickly. No capital requirements, no planning no budget issues, because it's just almost a credit card transaction it is a credit card transaction for a few weeks to get things moving. So, what is it? Oh, sorry, I think I've gone wrong. So, single point of truth is what I mean. This is where we are today in most companies. When you try and do analytics across, there's a piece of data in all those, and if you're an analyst or if you know analysts in a company, about half of the analyst time in most companies is spent just pulling together the data set for them to do the analyst job. And it's very typical for analysts to spend about half of their time every day just pulling together data. If you can remove most of that from them and make this happen in the organization, your analysts become much more efficient. And then they can look at much bigger data sets in one contiguous block rather than spread everywhere. So this is the mindset change. And this is the mindset change from ETL. ETL is about half a century old. Started with the mainframes originally because mainframes, you couldn't run analytics jobs on mainframes as well as transactions. The IT people would kill you because of the load on the mainframe. So you have to ETL it to some other database. Still going on today everywhere. Hundreds of people in companies are just doing that. And this creating this problem. This is all ETL holding it together. What we want to do is move data from the transaction into a data hub in seconds or milliseconds or minutes, and then push it down to legacy BI without conventional ETL, and be able to do real-time analytics as well. It's a simple change. Yeah, Catherine.
Why are you saying legacy BI? I mean, is it?
Because there still needs for legacy BI, and if we want, I haven't included slides, but we can talk about it. Legacy BI is still today going to be, data warehouses aren't going to go away for a long time, in big companies especially, because there's so much workload already on them, thousands of users, tens of thousands of jobs and files. It's the same with mainframes. People have been saying the death of mainframes for 20 years, and they're definitely not dead, because you can't pull them out quickly without disrupting the company. So the same with data warehouses. There's going to be, now, do you need in your data warehouse full history, full detail for everything? You don't. So the nice thing about these data hubs is you can have that full history, full detail in your data hub and push out to a data warehouse subsets of data, or to SAS or something for analytics. Push it out, but push out just what they need. Or let them come and get it from a data hub. but still use their legacy tools for at least, I'm thinking, at least a decade. A lot of people will still use those legacy tools because the change management is huge. Yes, George. Second question. Thank you.
Is the data hub kind of by subject? So, for example, you might have orders.
Yeah, it's structured, logical layers.
You
Yeah.
might have customer
Correct.
contacts.
Correct.
So there would be a different data hub for
No,
each
same
type
physical cluster, but it'd be tables.
altogether.
But structured in a way for security, and we may have it structured for some of it's encrypted, some of it's not. Some of it can be seen by different people. Some of it can not be seen by different people. Obviously, we have to look at who's going to look at what data. But you want all of the detail in one place, and then structure it in a way that it's secure and can be accessed securely. But the idea of these data hubs is to put everything in one place, because then there's the whole, well, the ETL thing partly goes away. Secondly, the accessibility to data is massively improved for analytics, because we don't have to go and find data in lots of places. But then the governance becomes really important, because you're putting everything in one place. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I have another question.
Okay.
Does near real-time ETL near real-time ETL needed for real-time
No,
analytics?
this is not ETL. In fact, we've used, say, Storm or Spark streaming. It doesn't have any conventional ETL in it. You're listening to a service bus usually, or a transaction bus of some nature. So web services, or an enterprise service bus, or a queue that the transactional systems are creating in real time. If you're listening to those in real time with Storm, for example, that's the example I gave. You can make an algorithm run in less than 100 milliseconds, 200 milliseconds, and you can get an answer pushed back to somebody. That isn't even touching. I mean, ETL would be too slow. ETL is a batch job.
It is a batch job.
So we use almost no conventional ETL in these data hubs. Some people want to, because they have a lot of people trained, and I know people that use Informatica. Historically, they may want to use Informatica still with the Hadoop, because they have all these people trained in transformation. The problem is, in a data hub, you really want to break some of their habits. And it can be dangerous not dangerous, but it can impede change if you keep that legacy mindset.
So with more real-time analytics taking place, would it not have an impact for the front-end users who are actually trying to log on the system and run some of the reports? In this case, like for example, like financial reporting at the end of month close, but 20,000 users logging in at the same time, trying to access the same data. I mean, and you are saying if the transactions are also taking place real time, would it not have?
No, because I'll show you the model actually in a second. Hold that question for the data hub model at the end. I only have 5 minutes left. So this is it actually. So the real-time layer down here these are the transactions. That's what you're saying, Charlie, happening in real time. You want to do a real piece of real-time analytics. Does it affect the transaction systems, and does it affect the downstream analytics? So the way we do it usually is we listen to these transactions through a service bus or directly into Storm and Kafka as a queue, and then we'll do maybe a real-time database or something, and then we'll do that analytics there. But we still push it. This sort of inner circle is Hadoop. Still push it almost immediately into Hadoop. And so any query, user access, goes through the Hadoop layers. It doesn't go through the real-time layers. Usually, although we can put a portal against these as well, but usually it doesn't. So in this case, we can go from here to the real-time layer to Hadoop, or we can go from here to a service bus to Hadoop. Whether or not you need real-time is the question. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Questions? So this is the kind of model we look at, where we have, and this is a sort of Facebook concept on Hadoop that's they came up with this concept, although it's kind of a data warehouse thing anyway, where you make these single point of truth marks for analytics. It's been around for years, but Facebook made it happen on Hadoop originally. So we bring in the source data, we keep it for the history and the data lineage of the audit. We produce these analytics-friendly marks, and then we push out either into memory, high-speed marks, or data warehouses, or persistent marks with security profiles on them, and then let users access that. There's a lot of batch processing still on Hadoop. Hadoop's great for batch processing. It was originally for batch processing. Still is great. I mean, it's so much faster than legacy systems, data warehouses, mainframes, legacy databases. We can, on a good size Hadoop cluster, we can outperform those legacy systems by an order of magnitude or more. And so batch is very important still, even though people, it's sexy to talk about real time. Like end of day close for finance or month close, you have to do it as a batch because you have to assemble all the inputs and you have to reconcile and go through a month-end close is not going to be a real-time thing for a long time, if ever, I don't know, just because of the reconciliation has to be done. So, what's important than ever, we'll be really quick now, is a well-managed architecture. Lots of roles have to be addressed, right? So, how you get data into these data hubs is super important. Who does it? How it's managed? How it's connected to these systems? How are we going to manage the data formats we bring in? We're going to compress data. We're going to put security profiles on. Who can see the data? How are we going to make these analytics-friendly views on the data is so important because you can't expect analysts to look at this transactional feed. It's very cryptic data. It's important for you to have it, but you don't want to do analytics usually on the transactional level. You have to make it analytics friendly. How we manage the audit side, DR becomes, HA and DR is so important. If you have everything in one big cluster for everybody to use, you better have a copy of it somewhere else. In case I suffered a data center explosion of fire once when I was in my previous career, and it wasn't fun trying to make sure your DR works and finding that it doesn't really. It's not a very fun exercise. So DR is so important. Data quality is really critical now because you want people to use a single copy of data and trust it, but it has to be good quality. And then you have to maintain the environment, okay, and managing code, everything becomes very critical. So governance is very important. So impact on skills is my last slide. I had to get to it because your students 1 minute 16 seconds to go. There's a lot of opportunity for you guys if you're students in this area because although concepts are similar, new programming languages, data modeling is very different. Performance tuning is very different. How we do data integration, data sourcing, how we replace legacy ETL is the completely different tools. The concepts are the same, but the tools are very different. How we do this whole lineage audit is a big deal. NoSQL itself is a paradigm shift for many people. Has to be addressed. Data discovery tools, lots of them now emerging. Text mining is becoming important. And this bottom one is where the big bucks are. If you're a really good data scientist in the US at the moment, you can command very good salaries indeed from large companies because they can't find enough good people. You have to be mathematically qualified. I'm 18 seconds over. Mathematically qualified, stats qualified, and have an inquisitive mindset. And if you have those skills and a real passion for data discovery, that's a great career to look at. Yes, sir. Now I think we're in questions now.
Yeah, we have about 5 minutes of Q&A.
Okay, so I have one here.
My question is that I think that this is a good opportunity in this space, data analytics space. At the same time, from risk management perspective, are we not kind of in a hype that everywhere they're trying to do the same thing, and maybe 5 years from now, we find there is a significant number of redundant people that they will be rushing to the same thing.
Well, data. This is the questions about skill set and whether in 5 years' time there'll be redundancy of skills. I don't know. These skills, to be honest, aren't that different than you would have had years ago, but the technical characteristics of the skills are different. So, we've had to do data modeling for decades. It's just data modeling of these big data NoSQL tools is different. Will it be different in 5 years? Yeah, of course it's going to be different. In IT, everything changes every few years anyway. I don't know if anything as profound as going to the NoSQL concept is going to be changed in 5 years. It's not even mature yet, but it will change. Yeah? I don't know what's going to come next. In memory, wasn't really around much. Now it's becoming very common. So yeah, these are going to change. I don't know when, but everybody in IT has to learn new skills every few years.
In your experience, what has been the most difficult part of governance in a new system like this?
Oh yeah, we suffered greatly when we first started in this because we came up with a governance model and standards and naming conventions and where you should put your data, and then we federated it out for many people to do, and hopefully they would follow the rules, which they didn't. So we ended up very quickly with 5 copies of sales and 3 copies of customer, just like the old days again. And so it's really important. The data ingestion piece has to be the highly governed area, because it has to be trustworthy data in one place that is really controlled. And we've learned a lot in that area. That's a whole hour session or more if we got into that. Any Twitter questions or not?
We have one there. Go for it.
Yeah, sorry, 2, right? One is on the, I just want to expand on the governance model. Do you have a slide or something that you can share, like the reference architecture that you showed?
I do. I don't have it here though, because they don't give me. I don't have any time.
Or something?
We can, if you come and follow up with me.
Okay. So other 2 areas, and I saw that live data transfer to the Hadoop. So what's happening to ERP? Are we thinking of archiving the data in Hadoop or?
ERP specifically,
Yeah.
like SAP, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, Hadoop and SAP can live together well. In fact, putting HANA, SAP, ECC, HANA, and Hadoop together, we demonstrated that at I was a keynote speaker at the Sapphire conference 2 years ago. So we demonstrated that live. And it's becoming quite a common thing to do because of the cost difference and the performance difference.
And the last one, in the reference architecture, I did not see your predictive analytics, the real-time analytics. So is there a reason why you...
The predictive would run on the Hadoop layer, which was implied. I just didn't show it. Any online ones? Or?
We're not getting many questions from Twitter.
Oh, terrible.
So if there are any other questions in the room, now it's time to...
Eric.
Follow up on your data governance. Can you talk about the brands that you used in the past and maybe who you'd recommend? Trials and tribulations, I guess.
Not from a vendor point of view. I can't offhand. I'd have to. The governance side is more of a procedural thing, and it's an organizational and role thing. It's less of a product actually. It's more of a how to do it, which is the same question. I think I can show you. I can show you slides later. Any more?
There's some questions.
We done? Okay.
I think that's it.
Very good.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.